Nashville, Tennessee, the Athens of the South, home of country music legends, honky-tonks, hot chicken, and, this guy. Each year, millions of tourists flock to Nashville to experience the magic of the city for themselves. But who else lives in Nashville? Over 250 species of birds call Nashville home, even if it's just a stop on their migratory journey.
My name is Graham Gerdeman. I am a photographer, conservation photographer, birding photographer, and I'm pretty active in the Tennessee birding and ornithological scenes. I grew up, though, in Middle Tennessee as a really, in a family that was really involved with backyard bird feeders. My brothers and I always had a little Peterson field guide, so we always learned what little chickadees and cardinals and things were. So I would honestly, I think it's honest to say that I'm birding every day in some capacity. It's not always that one has time to go to a park like we're in now and make a list, but I'm constantly listening and looking, and usually most mornings I try to do a little list of birds in my yard. It's almost a daily event for me.
I'm Laura Cook. I'm the bird research coordinator here at Warner Park Nature Center, and I help manage a long-term bird banding station that's been in operation for 40 years. Bird banding, it's a tool to help study wild birds. It's been in practice for over 100 years. We capture wild birds either using traps that we use in the wintertime or mist nets that are like a long badminton net kind of. So it's passive trapping. They just fly into it, and we check the nets every half an hour, bring them back to the banding station, and then we put a uniquely numbered aluminum band on their leg. And so anyone who captures that bird again will know where that bird was captured and a little bit about it. We submit all of our banding data to the USGS bird banding laboratory. So any researcher who wants to receive information on a certain species, they can request that from the banding lab.
My name is Kendra Abkowitz, and I'm Chief Sustainability and Resilience Officer with the Office of Mayor John Cooper. So in that role, I serve as a central point of contact for Metro government for anything and everything that touches environmental issues, sustainability and reducing our environmental impact, and then resilience and kind of preparedness for all sorts of unforeseen natural or man-made disasters. One of the things that's been really important to this administration is obviously restoring tree canopy. So Nashville's seen exponential growth, and with that growth sometimes comes destruction of tree canopy.
We need to have protections against the very few remaining corridors and habitats along the river like we have here. We need to have protections against that, or Nashville will continue to lose ground with its conservation efforts.
think many people know that cities are dangerous for birds?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, I think most people don't think about birds at all. And I think even people who consider themselves bird lovers don't really understand the significant losses that birds have had over the last, 50 years, and all of the things that we do on a daily basis and that people are doing at their businesses and in their homes that are really bad for birds. I think people just don't make the connection. Birds, when they are flying around and the window is reflecting back the vegetation, so they think that they can just fly through that. Many of us have had a bird strike a window, either at our office, at our home, and you'll see it sort of stunned and it's sitting there, and then it flies away and you think, oh good, it's fine. But we know that often that doesn't happen. Often they may fly away, but there's still significant damage that's happened and they may die, several hours later.
One of your big ones is outdoor cats. People just don't care. They will not put their comfort over having their cat outdoors over the loss of habitat, the loss of life that costs for all sorts of species.
So the number one thing, think that the easiest thing is, if you have a cat, is to keep it indoors. If it has to go outside, I have a cat. It's an indoor cat, and then I have a little catio. So when we're outside, I bring it out, and he can sit out in his little caged little catio and look around, but he's not going to be able to kill anything.
I love dogs and cats, but our parks are all we've got in Nashville, and there's virtually nothing done to enforce leash laws. People think that if their dogs are running through these fields out here, if they're not coming back with a bobwhite or a meadowlark in their mouth, that they're not doing any harm. But just the fact that they're out here every single day means those birds aren't nesting. It means that they're disappearing.
Then there's also, what you do in your backyard or at your house, as far as, do you use herbicides and pesticides? I think everybody thinks that birds just eat seeds because they go to the feeders, but the reality is that most birds, especially during the breeding season, they're eating insects. And so if you're putting out pesticides and herbicides, that is not good for the birds that you're trying to attract to your yard.
One of the most scary stories that's come out globally in the past few years is the loss of insect biodiversity. If we lose the insect biodiversity, everything will fall.
Because birds love bugs, they tend to love more native vegetation. And so, if you plant an oak tree, for example, it's going to have hundreds of different insects on there that are going to help feed, caterpillars and moths and all these other things that birds love to eat. And so trying to reduce your lawn and instead plant native plants is something that everybody can do. Habitat loss is probably even a bigger issue than anything outside of climate change.
The problem is urgent. When you talk about climate change, you're talking about disruption, massive disruption. So migratory bird species, some will adapt, some won't. Shorebirds are a particular concern. They breed way up in the tundra. Just like if we lose the sea ice, we'll lose the polar bears. If we lose the tundra, we're likely to lose species of shorebird and long-distance migrants that use those things.
Climate change is having an impact on our city. It is creating things like increased extreme heat events, increased precipitation events, and those with significant severity. And so understanding that is really critical.
I think that even more than climate change per se, it's habitat loss with birds. Much of that is driven by climate change. Much more of it is driven by careless and never-ending development, loss of native forests, deforestation, the list goes on and on. But there's a turning point beyond which there's not much going back, and no one knows where that is. And it's important that we have a shift in thinking before we reach it.
We have started a Lights Out campaign through a group called Bird Safe Nashville. And our hope is that we are trying to get residents and businesses in the Nashville area to turn out their lights during peak spring and fall migration.
We know when huge numbers of birds are going to come through, they come through at night, and when cities are lit up like beacons, it's a death trap.
Birds, as they're migrating through, they are attracted to large urban areas that are lit up at night. You know, one, they can collide with windows and collide with buildings. And then the other thing is if it's close to dawn, many migratory birds migrate at night, not during the day. And so when dawn hits and it starts to light up, the birds will go down to spend some time during the day to rest and to eat and drink and regroup. And so if they're being attracted to these large urban areas and then they have to rest for the day and they're in the middle of a city or they're close to a city, there's just way more hazards for them and not as many good resources for food and water.
So Lights Out initiative in Nashville would be huge and would take us to a place, you know, above some of those peer cities, because some cities are doing this, but not enough. We all need to be doing it.
There's over 40 cities in the U.S. that have adopted a Lights Out campaign, and Nashville was not one of them, and we said, we can make this happen. And we just got a resolution passed by City Council a couple weeks ago, and we're starting a campaign to make that happen. And then, you know, our hope is that there may be other issues after the Lights Out campaign that we'll be able to address.
Thank you for this. Can I put this in my office? A Bird Safe Nashville?
Please do.
Since the signing of the resolution, commercial buildings downtown and Nashville residents alike have taken the pledge to turn off their lights during spring and fall migration.
The purple martins were first detected in Nashville around 1996. These are birds that breed in North America. During migration, they gather for a month or two before they finish their migration journey down to South America. These roosts can be, you know, from a few hundred birds to hundreds of thousands of birds.
This roost has been around Nashville for a long time. I mean, he used to roost on one of those, like, crap hotels. They roosted for years out at Metro Center on trees out there, and Metro Center cut the trees out to get rid of them. But they move.
In 2020, they began roosting right at the Symphony Plaza, right in front of the Symphony. And that year, they jumped up to probably their biggest numbers that Nashville had seen, estimate, you know, between 100 and 150,000 birds. And it was spectacular. It's the most impressive sort of natural phenomena I've ever seen. The symphony recognized pretty quickly that it was messy. Last year, in 2021, they came back. The symphony made the decision that they could not sustain their operations with the birds there.
They've been downtown around the symphony for 2 years now, but they're going to move on.
Today, crews downtown cut down 31 trees.
To have a plan to say we're going to cut out trees and prevent them, it is something that could be celebrated rather than yet kicking the can and doing it by cutting trees, which is just the worst. It's just fighting a battle against nature that you shouldn't be fighting.
I think we have great opportunity to be more sustainable as a city. We've come a long way, we've had a lot of recent accomplishments, but there's a lot more that we need to do. And so I would say we are on our sustainability journey, but I will be the first to say that there's opportunity for us to do better. Nashville does have a diversity of landscapes, but the vast majority of the county, of Davidson County, is already developed. So any opportunity we have to protect that green space and create areas for biodiversity to live and thrive is really, really important and part of that.
Birds are a huge part of the larger ecosystem, and as we lose any of these species, there's a domino effect.
You know, they help disperse seeds, they help control insects, so those are all beneficial to the ecosystem and to humans as well.
So birds are worth preserving for the same reason that any of us are worth preserving. Humans are worth preserving, which may be debatable.
But then, you know, I think there's this other part of birds that is different than almost any other suite of species in that birds are everywhere. Even if you're in the most urban environment or you're out in the middle of nowhere, there will be birds around. I mean, there are very few places where you don't go out and you don't see birds or hear bird song. Even people who maybe aren't as connected to nature, I think birds provide that opportunity for people to maybe pause and notice what's happening and to have that connection.